Hi, my dear students. Desperate times call for desperate measures. This COVID-19 pandemic has forced all of us to stay indoors. And we are now forced to do things that we were not used to. You students are now forced to watch online classes, and we teachers are now forced to take classes before a camera. In a way, this shift is more difficult for teachers because as teachers we have got so much used to the traditional method. We were so comfortable standing before you in a classroom. But now, all on a sudden, we are forced to stand before a camera and deliver. But there is no other go. We have to cope with this new situation. So I'm making such an attempt. I'm going to teach you this third lesson, MATCHBOX by Ashapurna Debi. The two lessons in that first block you have already done. The first one was a speech by Christine Lagarde, the 3 L's of empowerment, and the second one, a poem by Catherine Tynan, Any Woman. And children, what do these two lessons discuss? I mean the topic. What topic do these two lessons discuss? Yes, the two lessons discuss the same topic, that is women empowerment. In fact, the whole block, the first block, the flights of freedom, deal with the same topic, the women empowerment. In the speech by Christine Lagarde, you read about the 3 ways of empowering women. She calls them the 3 L's of women empowerment. The first one is learning, second one labor, and the third one leadership. By this she means by educating a girl, by giving her employment, and by allowing her to take up leadership, one could empower women. So in this poem by Catherine Tynan, Any Woman, we read about a mother. And we read how a mother's role is so crucial in bringing up her children. So here we proceed to the third lesson, MATCHBOX by Ashapurna Debi. As I told her, this story also deals with the same topic, women empowerment. It tells us how a typical Indian woman faces a lot of insults, a lot of humiliation at the hands of her husband in her husband's house. So her name is Namita, but she is not just an individual woman. She is a true representative of all women around us. We could see a lot of Namitas in your own neighborhood. Just keep your eyes open, look around, observe the people around. You would see a lot of Namitas suffering a lot of insult, a lot of humiliation, a lot of problems at the hands of their husbands in their husbands' houses. So she is a true representative of these women, the women in India. Even today in this 21st century, women are not treated equal. They are treated as inferior citizens. So before we go to the story, before we read the story, let us discuss what are the problems that women in India face today. What are all those problems? There are a lot of problems. I have listed some 7 of them here. What are those main problems that women face in India? Okay, I have listed one by one. The first one is female infanticide or female feticide. What is female feticide? Female feticide is the killing of a girl child within the womb of the mother. So a girl child is not even given a chance to take birth. It's a cruel practice. Even now, such a practice is followed in some states. Luckily, in Kerala, we don't have such practices. And that is why we have a very healthy sex ratio. For every 1,000 men in Kerala, we have 967 women. It's a normal rate. And We are the first in terms of sex ratio in our country. But if you go to North Indian states, you will find the ratio going down. For example, in Haryana, the sex ratio is just 831. Do you know what it means? It means for every 1,000 men, only 831 women are there. That means out of some 100 men, 15 to 20 go without even life partners. So it's a very dangerous situation. So why does it happen? It happens because of female feticide. Even before the birth of the child, the sex of the child is determined by way of a scanning, and the child is murdered within the womb of the child, aborted within the womb of the child, womb of the mother rather. This cruel practice is what we call female feticide or female infanticide. And the second problem that women in India face is disparity in education. You see, if a child is lucky enough to take birth, if a girl child is lucky enough to take birth, do you think she is treated on par with boys? Not so. In Kerala, we treat boys and girls equally, almost equally. At least we send boys and girls to good schools and give them quality education. But it's not the case in other states. Okay, girls are not given good education. Many of them are not even sent to schools. And even if some girls are lucky to get school education, they are never allowed to go for higher studies. They don't get higher education. So their education ends with the school. So this disparity exists in many parts of India. Isn't it cruel? How could we discriminate between daughters and sons? But it does happen in India. And third is a lack of job opportunities. Suppose a girl gets good education, she completes her high studies, and she wants to take up some job. But do you think our men would allow that? But in most families, men don't allow women to go out and work. Indian men have a problem with this. They don't allow their women to go out and work. They think it is better for women to sit at home and run the family. So this mindset is the problem here, right? It is because of this mindset that girls are not allowed to go out and work. Only when they work, only when they earn their bread, they feel independent. They can stand on their own feet. But in India, women are destined to depend on their husbands, their fathers, their sons, all through their life. Because they are never economically independent. They are always dependent on their male counterparts, their husbands, their fathers or their sons. And the fourth important problem that women face today is unequal pay. Suppose a woman gets a good job. Do you think that she'll get equal pay on par with men? No. In most sectors, women are not paid equal pay. For example, in textile shops, you come across both the salesmen and saleswomen. Do you think they both are getting equal pay? No. For example, if a salesman is getting 700 per day, the saleswoman will be getting only 400. But we all know they do the same work, the same amount of work. Still, they are treated differently. They are not given equal pay for equal work. Only in government sectors, women are paid equal wages. In private sectors, women are paid much less than their male counterparts. So next important problem is they are not allowed to take up leadership. So you see, even if a woman is getting a good job, she is never given any high position. She is not allowed to come to the leadership. Because men feel that women are not able to take up leadership. So you just see the political situation in Kerala, okay, among political leaders. For example, the MLAs. How many women MLAs are there in the Kerala Legislature Assembly? Out of 140, Only 9 are there, 9. Only 9 women MLAs are there. What does it show? To represent half the population of the state, we have only 9 MLAs. The remaining 131 are men. So it's the general mindset. The people in general believe that the women are not capable of taking up leadership. So they are not allowed to take up leadership. And next is domestic violence. Even very talented women, employed women, they face this problem, in their husbands' houses. At the hands of their in-laws, at the hands of their husbands, they face a lot of problems, even physical assault they face. So domestic violence. What is domestic violence? Violence meted out to women in their husbands' houses. It may be at the hands of their husbands or their in-laws. So domestic violence is very common. You just look around in your own neighborhood, you would find a lot of wives undergoing so much of physical assault, getting humiliated by her own husband. So this is one major problem faced by Indian women. Another problem is sexual harassment. Even little girls are getting assaulted, molested, sexually harassed. So everyday newspaper we read about a lot of girls, a lot of women getting sexually assaulted, sexually harassed. So it's time we put an end to all this. So these are all the problems that women face. We'll go through all those once again. First of all, female infanticide. So the discrimination starts from the very womb of the mother. Then even if a girl is lucky enough to take birth, does she get good education on par with boys? No. That means there is disparity in education. She is not given quality education as boys are. And then even if a girl is educated, is she given a chance to do a job? Is she allowed to do a job? No. So that is lack of job opportunity. They are not provided with the proper job opportunities. And even if she is employed, if she is getting a job, is she given equal pay? Never. There is no equal wages for equal work. So she faces this injustice at her workplace as well. So next, even if she gets a job, is she allowed to take up leadership? Is she appointed at higher positions so that she could have her own decisions? Never. Most often she has to take orders from her male counterparts. And then there is domestic violence. This is a general problem faced by women everywhere, both educated and uneducated, employed and unemployed. And then finally sexual harassment. All over India, little girls and women face this problem. These are all the problems that women in India face. I have already told this story, Matchbox by Ashapurna Debi, discusses the problems that a woman, a wife faces at the hands of her husband, the humiliation, the insult, all these things she faces in her husband's house. So the title of the story is Matchbox. Can you guess why the title is Matchbox? The story is about a woman, Namita, about the problems she undergoes in her husband's house, about the humiliation she faces at the hands of her husband. But how come the story is titled Matchbox? What has a matchbox to do with a woman? You can make a guess. The first part of that story gives an answer to this question. Why the story is titled Matchbox. The author Ashapurna Debi makes a comparison, a very striking comparison here. She compares women to matchboxes. And what is the relevance of that comparison? You will come to know when you read the first part. For your convenience, I have divided this into different parts, and first part you are going to read now. Once you read the first part, I'll be coming back with some questions. We'll have a short discussion on each part. So you can read this story on the screen. I have added a video presentation of this story. I'll be asking you questions and you will be ready with your answers. Okay, good luck.
Matchbox, Ashapurna Devi. I always compare women to matchboxes. Why? Because of the way matchboxes are. Even though they have enough gunpowder to set 100 lankas aflame, they sit around, meek and innocent, in the kitchen, in the pantry, in the bedroom, here, there, anywhere. Women too are exactly the same. You want an example? Then look carefully at that enormous 3-story house in front of us.
Dear children, hope you have understood why this story is titled Matchbox. At the outset of the story itself, the author Ashapurna Debi compares women to matchboxes. And what do you find in common between women and matchboxes? Why does she make such a comparison? This is my first question to you. Why does the author compare women to matchboxes? What is there in common between them? You see, a matchbox has so much potential, so much of gunpowder. It has immense firepower. And Ashapurna Devi says women are exactly like matchboxes. They too have immense potential. They have immense firepower. They too have gunpowder. Just like a single matchbox can burn down this house. A woman, if she comes out of her comfort zone, if she starts raising her voice against injustice, she would become unstoppable. She has so much destructive power. But just like matchboxes, women also keep quiet. They also are meek and harmless. You see, you keep your matchbox in your pocket, you keep it under the pillow, you keep it on the table, you keep it anywhere. Right? Because you know a matchbox is harmless. A matchbox doesn't flare up on its own. Only when you take a matchstick, strikes it against the side of that matchbox, it flares up. And once it flares up, it could be very destructive. The same is the case with women. Only when you provoke her too much, she starts raising her voice. And if she comes out of that comfort zone, she becomes extremely dangerous. This is what Ashapurna Devi conveys through this comparison. She says, just like matchboxes, women are also harmless, very gentle, meek creatures. But once they go out of control, nobody can stop them. They become extremely dangerous. Now, let us pass on to the next question. Which episode in Ramayana is alluded to here? Dear children, there is an allusion to Ramayana in this part of the story. Which character in Ramayana is alluded to here? Yes, Hanuman. You know what Hanuman did in the city of Lanka? What did you do? He burned down the entire city of Lanka. It was a slap in the face for Ravana's pride, his arrogance. Just like that, if women start reacting against injustice, it would be a slap in the face for our pride, men's pride. But fortunately for men, women don't realize their potential. They don't react the way they should. Actually, it's a blessing for us men that women don't react the way they could. They have so much potential, they don't make full use of their potential. So now let us come back to the third question. When and where does the story take place? Where does the story take place and when? And the author says, the author invites our attention to a 3-storied mansion, a 3-storied house. It is the house of this Bengali couple, Ajith and Namita. There are about 26 members in that family. It's a large joint family. And the author invites our attention to that house. It is in this house that the story takes place. The story presents a small episode in the life of this couple, Ajith and Namita. And this story does not take place in the present period. It is set in an older period, maybe 1950s or 60s. And it is set in rural Bengal. The writer Ashapurna Debi was a Bengali author, and she wrote this story in Bengali language originally. And this was later translated into English language, Prasenjit Gupta. So we are reading the English version written by Prasenjit Gupta. So naturally, the story presents a Bengali couple. Their names are Ajith and Namita. Dear children, I would like you to take down these questions in your notebook. You please pause the video and take down these 3 questions in your notebook. And I would like you to answer the questions in your notebook itself. Once you do that, you go on to the next part of the story. You read the first part of the second part of the story. I'll be coming back with a few more questions. So you get ready to answer my questions.
Sunday morning. The washerman has come and is waiting. Moments before handing over a heap of Ajith's dirty clothes to the washerman, Namita goes through the pockets one last time and discovers a letter. A twisted, crumpled envelope with its mouth torn, and on the envelope, Namita's name. A flame goes up top in all Namita's nerves and veins. She drops the clothes in her hand and sits on the bed to open the letter. The first thing she looks at is the date. Going by the date, the letter must have come about 3 days earlier. She turns over the envelope and matches the postmark to the date. The 2 bears the same witness. Yes, the letter came 3 days ago. Ajith has opened it and read it, then crumpled it and twisted it and dropped it into his pocket and left it there. Hasn't felt the need to mention it even once to Namita.
Dear children, you have now read that part of the story. This story takes place on a Sunday morning. And the washerman is waiting downstairs to collect dirty clothes. And Namita is busy collecting all the dirty clothes, especially Ajith's clothes. And for the last time, she's inspecting all his pockets. And what does she discover as she is busy inspecting his coat pocket? That is my first question here. What does Namita discover from Ajith's pocket? What does she discover? She discovers a letter addressed to her, that is Namita. And what was the condition of that letter? Was it intact? No, it was crumbled, twisted, and torn open. At that first sight itself, Namita understands that the letter has been torn and it was crumbled and twisted and thrust into his coat pocket. What do you understand from this? The way he crumbled and twisted the letter. That's my second question here. What do you learn about Ajith's intention from the way he twisted and crumpled that letter? What do you learn about his intention? Did he ever intend to give that letter back to her after reading? And do you think if he had any intention to return that letter, he would have crumpled and twisted it? What do you understand? What was his intention actually? What we understand is he had no intention to give it to her. If he wanted to give it to her, he wouldn't have crumbled or twisted that letter. So that letter was thrust into his pocket with an intention to throw it away at a later time. So it shows that Ajith has no feelings. He has no concern for the feelings of others. He's a mean person with no genuine love for his wife. So my third question is, what was Namita's immediate reaction? What made her so angry? On seeing that a letter had come to her, addressed to her, and this was opened by Ajith without her consent, what was her reaction? How did she react? The author says a flame goes up top through her veins, and she sits down, dropping the clothes. She's so much shocked. This is a very insulting thing to happen for a wife. Her husband opens letters addressed to her without her consent and reads it and doesn't even give it to her. And it's a disrespect to any wife. It's the worst thing to happen to a wife. Okay, do you like anybody to open letters addressed to you? Or do you open someone else's letter without her consent? No, we don't do that. Cultured people don't do that. But here, a highly educated man like Ajith, who's known to be high-minded, large-hearted, okay, we see his real color here. He's a mean person. And he looks down upon this woman with contempt. He doesn't feel like taking her permission before reading. Okay, if I read my letter and feel like showing it to others, it's my freedom. But if you read my letter without my consent, it's an insult to me. It's it's a disrespect on the part of that person. So we don't usually do that. So my third question, how does she take it? What is her reaction? She gets so much angry. What makes her even angrier? What makes her even angrier? Okay, she's even angry because it's not the first time that it's happening. It has happened time and again. Okay, this is Ajith's habit. Ajith's nature is like that. He always opens the letters addressed to her, and sometimes he doesn't give it to her at all. At least she suspects that he doesn't give all letters addressed to her. So she gets so much angry. That flame goes up top through her veins and nerves, and she boils with rage. This is what the author says. She boils with rage. That is why that flame goes up through her veins and nerves. The last question is, how does she understand that the letter had arrived 3 days ago? How does she understand finally? The letter had actually arrived at least 3 days back. Okay, after some time she regains her control and then she starts reading the letter. She looks at, first thing she does is she inspects the date on the envelope. And then she looks at the back side of the envelope and looks at the date on the postmark. And from both those dates, she understands the letter had arrived at least 3 days back. But this gentleman had no intention to give her. He did not even mention it to her. Did not even tell that such a letter was there. Okay, it shows how mean this person is. This is how this lady, Namita, undergoes so much of humiliation. This is a humiliation for any self-respecting individual. A letter addressed to her was torn open and read by another person, crumpled and twisted and thrust into his pocket without her permission. This is a humiliation at its height. So nobody can put up with such humiliation. So we would see what Namita does in retaliation against this kind of humiliation at the hands of her husband. Okay, dear children, these 4 questions I would like you to take down. You please pause the video and take down these questions and you later on answer these questions. Okay, after this, after taking down these questions, you would watch the third part of that story, Matchbox. Then I'll be coming back with a few more questions like this so that we would have further discussions on the developments in the story.
The flame that had gone up top now burns steadily, hissing, sounding its note on each of her mind strings. Because this incident is not a casual oversight, it's deliberate. Ajith's nature is exactly like that. Somehow, he has gained possession of the key to the letterbox, fishing it through the gaps among the 52 hands of the joint family. And whenever there is a letter with Namita's name on the envelope, he opens and reads it first, and only then does he give it to her. It is possible that oftentimes he doesn't give it to her at all. At least that is the suspicion that has taken deep root in Namita's mind. Even though to this day Ajith cannot truthfully make the claim that he has been able to discover any letter in the slightest degree suspicious. Still this ugly habit of his won't go. Not with Namita's anger, not with her taking offense, not with bitter reproaches, her trying to shame him, sarcasm, not with anything. If she mentions it, first he tries to laugh it away, and if laughter doesn't get him out of deep water, he scolds her.
Dear children, you have seen how Namita gets furious to know that Ajith has opened her letter yet again. But how does Ajith get hold of those letters? All letters addressed to Namita passes through Ajith's hands. And how does he make sure that all letters addressed to Namita pass through his hands? That's my first question here. How does Ajith make sure that all letters addressed to Namita pass through his hands? What has he done to ensure all those letters from her mother, from Namita's mother, would pass through his hands? So the author says, this gentleman, I don't know if we could call him a gentleman, he has by foul means got possession of the key to the letterbox. Actually, it's a large family comprising of 26 members, and he's not an elder member of the family. He's just a junior member. Still, by way of some foul play, he has got possession of that key, so that every day he could open the key, the letter box, and make sure that there's no letter addressed to Namita. And whenever there is a letter addressed to Namita, he opens it and then reads the letter. And sometimes he doesn't even give it to her. Okay, then the question is, why does he do this? Why is he so eager to read all letters addressed to Namita? What must be the reason? That is my second question here. What does this show about his character? What do you think is the reason why he wants to read all those letters? So do you know such husbands? Those who are eager to read the letters addressed to their wife, there must be some reason. So it must be because Ajith is suspicious about her character. Maybe Ajith feels that she has an illicit relationship and that someone is passing her love letters in secret. And it's a misfortune for any wife to have such a husband. It's an ignominy, it's an insult for a wife to be suspected by her own husband. It's the worst thing to happen for any wife. But Ajith here has such a nature. He's a suspicious husband. Then come to the third question here. What all ways did Namita try to correct this ugly habit of her husband? So this ugly habit, opening the letters of Namita without her permission. And what all ways did she try to correct this ugly habit? She tried everything possible. She showed anger. And then she used bitter reproaches. She rebuked him, she scolded him. She used sarcasm. What is sarcasm? Sarcasm is saying one thing and meaning exactly the opposite. She would say, "Oh, I'm so lucky to have a husband like you. You are the best husband in the world." And she tried to shame him. Shame him by saying, "Aren't you ashamed of reading someone's letter? People call you a gentleman, a high-minded, large-hearted gentleman. But you are not ashamed to read my letter. This way, she tried every way possible. She showed anger, she used bitter reproaches, she used sarcasm, and she tried to shame him. But this ugly habit won't go, because that is there in his blood. His nature is like that. Now come to the fourth question here. How does Ajith respond to his wife's complaints? And whenever Namita complains about this ugly habit, how does he respond? What does he say? What does he say? Usually he doesn't say anything, he just laughs it away. But if laughter does not do, if laughter cannot stop her from complaining, then he would scold her, just like most husbands do. When they have no answer to the questions of their wives, they scold their wives. So this is what Ajith also does. Whenever she complains too much about this ugly habit, he scolds her. So we come across a husband who's so mean, a suspicious husband, who has no concern for the feelings of his wife. So it is a misfortune for a woman like Namita to have such a husband. She's undergoing so much of insult at the hands of her husband. To take down all these questions, okay, you could pause your video for some time, take down all the questions in your notebook, and later on you could answer those questions. Now, next you would read the next part of the story. After taking down these questions in your notebooks, you please watch the next part of the story. I'll be coming back with a few more questions for further discussions.
She sits perfectly still for a minute and reads the letter thorough. It is nothing much, a letter from Namita's mother. It is a standard speech. The good woman has once again placed on the record the news of her various hardships and complaints getting worse. Misfortune upon misfortune, the ceiling of her room is cracked, and the rainwater falls through the ceaseless streams. If this is not immediately remedied, she will have to die crushed under the weight of a collapsed roof. Of course, she does not dread that eventuality. Her daughter was a queen, her son-in-law high-minded, large-hearted, therefore, etc., etc. An indigent widow, without husband or son, she was successful in consigning her daughter to a wealthy family's house on the strength of looks alone. But the good lady has never stopped taking credit at the slightest opportunity for her skill in the matter, and she has been finding such opportunities all along. Whenever Ajith sees a new letter from Namita's mother, he smiles derisively and says, "Why bother to read that? I'll go and fill out a money order form." Namita's head hangs low with the shame and the insult of it. So, some time ago, out of anger and grief, Namita forbade her mother from writing to her on postcards. She thought that from then on she would try to send her a little money, whatever she could pull together in secret. So, this was what came of letters in envelopes too. Suddenly, Namita flames into anger at her mother. Why? Why does she keep on begging like this? Why won't she let Namita keep her self-respect, her dignity? No, this time she will write and tell her mother clearly, "I can't do anymore. Don't hope for anything from